One of the big reasons why I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the journey. There have been ups and downs, but being able to watch so many characters grow over time and see the world change with them is an experience we don't get too often, at least to this degree. Endgame was the accumulation of all the work that was put into making this universe what it is, and what an experience it was. But where do we go from here? The sheer amount of possibilities is staggering, which is why I was so excited to see what their new line of TV shows would bring us, especially Falcon and the Winter Soldier. What would they choose to do? So much potential, but unfortunately, they didn't capitalize on any of it. Falcon and the Winter Soldier takes place only a few months after Endgame, post-blip. The world is trying to figure out how to handle the return of half the population after the 5-year gap. This is quite a complicated topic as it had monumental repercussions on the world. Sam doesn't feel fit to wield the iconic shield of Captain America. Bucky is haunted by his past as the Winter Soldier. And both of them are part of that blip and have been suddenly thrown back into the world after 5 years. How are these characters going to deal with these issues and adapt to this new world? They won't. That's how. Sam is shown giving away Captain America's shield to the government, and then just continuing on as Falcon, running military missions. He just seems to be carrying on as if nothing ever happened. We see some of his casual life with his sister and his nephews, but nobody ever really addresses the gigantic elephant in the room. Sam was dead for 5 years, yet he has no kind of adjustment period. He just has a great relationship with these kids who he should barely even know. Why is he running military missions all of a sudden? Yeah, he was originally a soldier, but he's an Avenger that also happened to be against the Sokovia Accords. At the time of his death, he was a vigilante on the run from the government. Why isn't he working with the other Avengers that are still alive? We briefly see Rhodey at the start of the show, so why is he not still doing Avengers missions with him rather than random government missions? With the state of the world, this stuff seems very natural to discuss and cover, so why is it being ignored? The main antagonists of the show are the Flag Smashers, led by Carly, and they have a motivation directly related to the blip. It is difficult to entirely understand their purpose because very little is explored in this show, but from what I can gather, everyone in the group were survivors of the original snap. Now that half the population has returned, they feel this section of the population is being given priority over anybody who has been around the whole time. That could be very interesting. The Flag Smashers routinely steal supplies for refugees that have been displaced due to the sudden population increase. But aside from that, we don't really know anything about what's happening. What sparked the motivation for the Flag Smashers to begin with? Many common folks seem to be greatly in support for their cause. What is happening that has caused such distrust in the government? This would be a great opportunity to explore the repercussions that the blip had on the world, along with the sudden return of so many people into the population. I mean, if half the population randomly disappeared, entire countries could have vanished and now reappeared. With the sheer amount of problems that are most certainly occurring in the world, we need an explanation of some kind as to what drives these people. And Sam is a great candidate to help explore such issues. Carly feels the ones that vanished are given priority, and Sam is one of those people. They could easily have had discussions about the differences of their experiences. Carly could talk about the horrors that followed the snap and what she and the world had to endure, while Sam could talk about the psychological effects of basically blinking and then being 5 years in the future. They could easily play off each other and provide fuel for a rivalry. But none of this is touched on. Instead, Carly starts murdering people and blowing up buildings, and Sam just empathizes with her for some reason, I guess. There is no development of any kind here. But the one who is treated the worst is Bucky. Initially, we see him having nightmares of his past missions. He hurt and killed a lot of people, and it obviously weighs on him greatly. He's trying to make up for his past by helping some of the people he wronged, while also helping arrest many of the people he brought to power. All the while, his PTSD is preventing him from adjusting to any semblance of a normal life. Right from the start, there is so much potential to work with, yet so little was actually done. In fact, most of it was skipped right over. There is a flashback scene from Bucky's time in Wakanda, where they cure his Winter Soldier mind control programming. It is quite a moment watching Bucky break through and finally be free from the shackles of the Winter Soldier. But this is the only scene related to it at all. Where was the effort, the struggle, the failed attempts? Bucky was brainwashed for decades. This is a lot of trauma to work through, but all we see is the very end. Why was it skipped? This scene is nice and all, but I can only imagine how it would have been even more awesome if we saw that journey. We could have easily had a movie about it, which would have been quite different for Marvel. It's a shame that we just skipped over all of Bucky's progress and moved right along. But to make it worse, most of Bucky's characteristics are just ignored and forgotten for most of the series. He is supposed to be one of the most lethal assassins in the world, being so good that most thought he was a myth at first. But he doesn't utilize those skills. Looking at the very first fight with the Flag Smashers, Bucky is the one that wants to bum rush into a bunch of super soldiers because he has a metal arm. Sam is the one to suggest patience, when you'd think it would be the other way around. The assassin with decades of experience might be able to utilize those skills to collect information and spy on people. But I guess not. Then, when they confront the Flag Smashers on top of moving trucks, Bucky gets his ass handed to him. The Flag Smashers, a bunch of random people that got super soldier powers, overpower the Winter Soldier. Bucky even starts cracking jokes in this scene, where he states he always wanted to break Sam's drone, Red Wing. The scene is so strange, especially when considering Bucky's PTSD is completely absent from an active battle that, from his perspective, is absolutely life or death. This battle would have actually been a great way to demonstrate Bucky being unstable and how he is dealing with everything. A simple flashback to an old mission could distract Bucky, making him much more vicious than he should be, dominating the Flag Smashers and even establishing him as a real threat to their cause. But, at the same time, in this haze, he could accidentally go for Sam as well and give the Flag Smashers that moment to escape. That would give Sam a major insight into what Bucky is really dealing with, and how difficult things must be for him, allowing the two characters to potentially connect on a deeper level. Instead, the Flag Smashers kick their asses, and then Bucky and Sam just decide not to continue chasing them. Remember back in Civil War when Captain America is recruiting Ant-Man? A small part of that scene is when an alarm goes off and the airport is evacuated. The entire team looks confused, because the message is in another language. However, Bucky translates the message for them. I bring this up because I really like this small detail. Bucky, the international assassin, is absolutely the one person who is going to be able to translate for the group. His experience came in handy in that moment, and even though it's a small moment that could easily be overlooked, the character is consistent with his skills, which is nice to see compared to him utilizing none of them. Of course, something else to consider is how Bucky was also somebody that is part of that blip. I would have liked to see how that could have affected his mental state, or maybe just how it affected him at all. The sheer amount of potential this show had was kind of incredible, but almost all of it was either ignored or wasted. There are a lot of issues and controversial topics in the show that I didn't mention, but they all feel overshadowed by what didn't happen. The blip is such a major part of the MCU now, it can't just be brushed aside. Sam and Bucky don't address the fact that they've been gone for 5 years and should have a major adjustment period. The Flag Smashers don't share their experiences into living through what would be the single most catastrophic event in history. Bucky's characteristics are brushed aside and ignored for seemingly no reason. The missed opportunity here cannot be understated. We could have delved deeper into what life was like in that 5-year blip period. We could have had issues addressed that directly related to the characters that have been set up and followed for years. We could have had something incredible. Unfortunately, that is not what we got, and it's just so disappointing.